Hello, everyone, and good evening. I am so excited that you are joining us for such an incredible author event. We booked this event actually several months ago, and I have been looking forward to it. We enjoy every single author event that we put on at the Novel Neighbor, but this has definitely been one of the ones that all of our staff has been looking forward to and couldn't wait for October to get here. So I am so happy that you're here this evening. My name is Stephanie. I am the Director of Operations for the Novel Neighbor. We are a independently owned and operated bookstore found in St. Louis, Missouri, and we have an incredible author panel for you. So tonight is a launch event for a very special book, but to help with that launch, our author is joined by some incredible authors for this amazing panel. So I am going to get us started here in just a moment by reading everyone's bios. First, I want to say that we are definitely going to do a Q&A, and that if you want to purchase any of the events that, or purchase any of the books that are showcased this evening, you can do that on our website. And we'll give you more information about that later. I'll put a banner up. So without any further ado, our first author this evening is Leah Johnson, a writer, editor, and eternal Midwesterner, which has a special place in my heart, currently moonlighting as a New Yorker. She is a graduate of Indiana University and Sarah Lawrence College, where she received her MFA in fiction writing and currently teaches in their undergraduate writing program. When she's not writing, you can usually find her on Twitter, that boded well yesterday, ranting about pop culture and politics. Her first novel, You Should See Me in a Crown, is a Stonewall Honor book and a Reese's Book Club YA pick. Her second novel, Rise to the Sun, was published this summer by Scholastic. Emma Lorde is a digital media editor and writer living in New York City, where she spends whatever time she isn't writing, either running or belting show tunes in community theater. She graduated from the University of Virginia with a major in psychology and a minor in how to tilt your computer screen so nobody will notice you updating your fan fiction from the back row. Relatable. She was raised on glitter, a whole lot of love, and copious amounts of grilled cheese. Her novel, You Have a Match, is a Reese's Book Club YA pick and New York Times bestseller. Her new novel, When You Get the Chance, goes on sale January 4th from Wednesday's Books. Shamalia Syed Mendez is the author of Blizzard Besties, Random Acts of Kittens, and many other books for young readers, including Furia, a Reese's YA Book Club selection, and winner of a Pura Belpa YA Author Medal. She was born and raised in Rosario, Argentina, but has lived most of her life in a lovely valley surrounded by mountains with her husband, 5 kids, 2 dogs, and 1 majestic cat who rules them all. A Walter Dean Myers Grant recipient, she is a graduate of the Vermont College of Fine Arts. Her new middle grade series, Horse Country, will publish in April of 2022. Laura Taylor Namey is the New York Times bestselling author of Reese's Book Club YA pick, A Cuban Girl's Guide to Tea and Tomorrow, as well as The Library of Lost Things and When We Were Them. A proud Cuban American, she can be found hunting her vintage treasures and wishing she was in London or Paris. She lives in San Diego with her husband and 2 children. Her new book, When We Were Them, will be published by Antheum Books for young readers on November 2nd. And finally, all of these authors are stars, obviously, but definitely the star of our evening is Sharon Cameron, the #1 New York Times bestselling author of The Dark Unwinding, A Spark Unseen, Rook, The Forgetting, The Knowing, The Light in Hidden Places, and most recently, Bluebird, all from Scholastic Press. Her books have won the Parents' Choice Gold Award, the Westchester Fiction Award, the Junior Library Guild's Gold Standard Award, earned starred reviews from Booklist, SLJ, Bookpage, and Kirkus, and have been chosen for numerous lists, including Indie Next Top 10, YALSA's Best Fiction for Young Adults, Junior Library Guild Gold Standard, Audible Best Books, and numerous state award nominations. The Light in Hidden Places was a 2020 Reese Witherspoon Book Club pick and has been sold in 19 foreign countries. When not writing, Sharon can be found shooting her longbow, thumbing dusty tomes, pondering the past, or continuing her lifelong search for secret passages. She lives with her family in Nashville, Tennessee. Hello, everyone. It is so good to see all of you on one screen. This is so incredible. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Hello, everybody.
I just want to hold up Bluebird really quickly because, as I mentioned, this is your launch event. We are so honored to be hosting your launch event. Have you been having a good book birthday so far, Sharon?
It's been an excellent book birthday. It was gloomy and stormy and thundered, and this suits me perfectly. So it was a Sharon Cameron kind of day.
So funny because it was sunny here in St. Louis. So we're not that far from each other. Leah, I love that you gave the Midwest a shout out, just as like we're talking about St. Louis and Nashville. Thanks for the shout out in your.
Look, if there's one thing I'm going to do, it's put on for the home team. Okay. Not enough writers are out here talking about the Midwest. It's all coastal. We're past that. We've evolved.
Thank you. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate that. I know this panel is going to be so much fun. I feel like we were already having a blast in the green room and no one else got to see that. So just picture everyone watching, just imagine the amount of fun that we were having. And before we get started, I think the first thing that we want to do is if someone doesn't know about Bluebird yet, Sharon, can you tell us what Bluebird entails? Because I know you can give it a better pitch than even I can, and I love this book so much.
So Bluebird is a historical noir mystery thriller that tells the story of Eva. And Eva is a German immigrant coming to New York City in 1946. She is running from the fires of one war straight into another far colder war. And but she is not coming to America to start a new life. She's coming to seek justice and a Nazi who has slipped its net. And she is coming with a secret, and that is the secret of Project Bluebird. And that is information that neither she nor the Soviets nor the Americans should ever have.
I mean, and let me just tell everybody, if that's not a big enough teaser, I don't know what is. I definitely spent a lot of this book being like, I cannot wait to figure out what it is that I cannot know. I mean, when you put that over somebody, you're like, what do I need to know? So you are definitely not a newcomer to historical fiction. You, The Light in Hidden Places, which I have right here, also is in that space. How did Bluebird come around? Did this come up when you were writing The Light in Hidden Places, or was this just a second, had nothing to do with that? How did this happen?
Yeah, so really Bluebird is the coming together of two pieces of American history that could not be more different than from each other. One is very inspirational, one is shameful, and both of them I felt like were completely forgotten. And the first is Powell House. And Powell House was a program being run by Quaker volunteers from an exclusive mansion on the Upper East Side of New York City. And it was a program that was created and developed to extend practical help and friendship and unconditional love to refugees of war. And it was being done in a very multi-religious, multi-racial way, in a way that was so far ahead of its time in terms of social justice that it was really hard for me to even believe that it existed. The second piece of forgotten history was Project Bluebird. And Project Bluebird was a secret CIA operation begun just after Germany's defeat at the end of World War II. And the purpose of this secret program was mind control. Their goal was to split the human personality, either through drugs or therapy or lots of evil things that they decided to do, and to gain control of the human mind for the purpose of having the perfect spies and assassins. Basically, they wanted to create killers that did not know they were killers. And it sounds like science fiction, but they really believed that this could be done. And not only that, they believed the Soviets could already do it. And these were experiments that were coming straight from the records of the concentration camps, specifically from Dachau. And I believe that these experiments which were done on unwitting, unconsenting American citizens. I believe our government was paying Nazi war criminals to do them.
It's so wild.
Yeah. So honestly, like, you know, could it be more different? And they both of these programs shocked me for utterly opposite reasons.
Quick question for the whole group. Did any of y'all know about this until you read Bluebird?
No.
I was like not shocked that I didn't know this. Like I've already come to the firm understanding and some kind of serenity that I don't know half of what happens in the world. And so nothing should shock me. But I was just like, what is happening? Like, how is this a real thing? It makes you think about other things that we didn't know were real things and still don't know are real things. It puts a lot of questions in my mind. Shamilia, you were having lots of reactions to that throughout. Do you?
Yes, but mainly my questions have to do with you, Sharon. I'm amazed by you because you've had a lot of, you know, high profile books. How do you place yourself in the mental space out of, you know, marketing your books that are already out and then having to do the research? How did you find all this information? I mean, I have a ton of questions.
Yeah, it was very dark research, and it was a lot of it, and it was research that I had to take a break from. I really did spend a good solid 3.5, 4 years on Nazis between The Light and Hidden Places and Bluebird, and that is a space that you need to step away from a little bit. But at the same time, it was so interesting to sort of tease out the conspiracy theories from what was actually provably real. So a lot of this information, anybody who wants to read about Bluebird can go to the CIA's website and go to their reading room and type in Bluebird, and the documents pull right up. Freedom of Information Act is a wonderful thing. And so I really tried to stick with what they said themselves and what the records proved, rather than a lot of the conspiracy theories that you can find on the internet. Project Bluebird eventually was renamed Project Artichoke, which was eventually renamed MK Ultra. And MK Ultra was infamous. And that was the program that came to light in the mid-70s. They tried to destroy all the documents before the congressional investigation happened. However, 20,000 had been misfiled and put in the wrong warehouse. And that's why we have the records that we do. Most of the records are lost. So there's a lot there that we'll never, ever know. But it ended in infamy, and it was an enormous black eye to our government in the 70s when this came to light. But that's how long the program ran.
That's incredible. Amazing.
That is truly so. It is amazing, and it should be, again, if anyone hasn't read this book yet, how does this not want to make you read or interact with this material? Because it truly is something that is so shocking and something that we don't hear a lot about. Every time I feel like I know a lot about World War II, I'm like, oh, you just brought in 3 other things that I didn't know about at all. I
have that same reaction every time I research. Wow.
Well, what did lead to the shift from, because as I read off your bio, you have many amazing books. Not all of them are historical fiction. What led you to kind of make, not like a permanent shift or anything, but to make this shift into your last 2 books? You spent 3 to 4 years researching in this space. What led to that?
You know, it's everybody asks me that question because I have dabbled in lots of different things. You know, I have some steampunk-esque kind of books and some sci-fi and some dystopia, and I've done a lot of different things. But honestly, to me, it didn't feel like a shift at all. To me, this felt like a very natural Sharon Cameron thing to write about. And the truth is that anything I write, I research like it's a historical novel. If I am writing a fantasy, I research and I ground that in human experience that has already been. Maybe it takes a different spin, but I think when we reach through the fantasy and we get to some depths of history, that's when it feels so relatable and it feels so real, even when we're turning it around just a little bit and changing things up. So I really didn't research either of my last 2 historical books any differently than I did my sci-fi. Actually, but I'm just a history gal. I spend a lot of time, and I always have from childhood. I was the nerdiest child you could possibly imagine. And I have always felt this connection to the past and the mystery of all that has come before us. All of these things, all of the sum of human experience that has come together to create the world that we have right now. When we can understand that, we can understand who we are now and how we got here and how to go somewhere different. But so much of that is lost. And I think the mystery of those lost things is so alluring to me. And so I spend a lot of time trying to ferret out those forgotten people and forgotten facts. I want us to remember.
I think it's so interesting to hear you talk about how your research process isn't any different. This is just because you're writing kind of more in this subgenre of YA. And I do want to hear from everyone else, how do your different stories come to be? Whichever one you want to highlight right now. Doesn't have to be the one that was the Reese YA Book Club pick necessarily. But how do your stories, where do you find inspiration for your stories? How do you know what is going to come up next? Whoever wants to kind of tackle that first. Emma, I suspect when you get the chance came from a community theater background. Am I wrong?
No, you are very correct. The year before I started writing that book, we put on Mamma Mia, and I had quite the task as ensemble member number 15. I was one of those, the flip-flop dancers in the back. That was my arduous task, was flip-flop dancing, and somewhere along those flip-flop dances, I was like, oh, this would make a fun book. But most of my books, actually, I feel like I've had the inspiration for them weirdly while talking to one of my sisters, where we just sort of we'll be shooting the shot, and one of us will say something, and I'll think about it, and a few days later, I'll be like, oh, that could be a book. And that's even a tweet led to Tweet Cute, which was my first book. And even that was a conversation I was having with my sister where I was like, I should tweet this, cut to 3 years later. And so yes, definitely a mix of social media, sisters, and lots of community theater.
I love that so much. Does anyone else relate to that?
Totally. Yeah, books just pop up. For me, I use a lot of things that I've been through, just having teens at home now. Like when I was a teenager, in the way back, using things that resonate, that still kind of bother me or I still think about, but then repackaging them for today's reader and for today's teen and today's world with all the things that I didn't have, whether that be from my Cuban American background or from the cool places that I've been or grown up, just taking those and adding, kind of like making a soup and adding a bunch of stuff from, things I see at Starbucks, plus something my daughter said, plus, something I remember from school that never left me from the 7th grade and all those quirky things that people call you, or colors, shapes, images, all that stuff just kind of gets thrown together and poof, there's a book. That's how I do it. But
yes, I love Sharon's comment of saying how her research is the same no matter what genre she's writing about. And for example, in Furia, it's a contemporary, but I did a lot of research into the history of feminism in South America and soccer and how it started, because I felt like even though those parts of my research didn't make it into the final book, I had to be informed. I had to be aware of the fight that has been taking place for way longer than I have been alive, which has been a long time already. But people have been having these conversations for a long time, and I wanted to see what I could add and what I could highlight, or what I could how I could share it with my young readers. And also, even when I'm writing my little meter grades for my wish books for Scholastic, I have one called Random Acts of Kittens, which was a blast to write. because I wrote it during the winter. It's a story about a girl who finds a mama cat and she has to place the little babies. I did a lot of research on kittens, and I was so proud of myself because that research paid off when a young reader wrote to me saying that she was so happy that I had gotten right that usually orange cats are male. And it is when there are females, when orange cats are female, it's a genetical variation. And I added that in the book because I thought it was interesting. And she was so happy because she said everybody gets it wrong. And so the young readers are always sometimes they're so invested in the stories that they pay attention to the little details. And so all that research pays off. And like Laura says, I have kids at home, and I feel that's my payback for being a mom for a long time. And so I will use anything they do or say. Sometimes, though, they will add, Mama, you cannot put this in a book. And I, of course, respect that. And I will change things so that nobody will recognize the situations or the characters. But I'm always inspired by their experiences. And even when I go on walks with my 9-year-old and he will say, Mama, what if? And always my mind just explodes with ideas. So I feel like I'm very lucky that I have my study subjects living under my roof.
Yeah, I think for me, my story ideas are two-pronged. It's mostly an attempt to sort of write back to the girl I was when I was 16 and fill in all the gaps and the empty spaces that I identified in YA when I was growing up. You know, like, we didn't have a lot of stories about, you know, Black girls growing up in the Midwest or anybody in the Midwest. Like, most of the books I read were coastal. They were about, you know, skinny, heterosexual white girls with money, of which I was none of those things. And so, you know, it made sense to me to draw on what I knew when it was time to start writing books. And that was like the thing that was most compelling to me. And then from there, it's a matter of like, okay, if I have to spend years, literal years working on a book, what can I stay focused on for that long? It's got to be something I really, really care about. And that is prom, surprisingly enough. I love it. That is like, you know, that's like music festivals, that's high school newspaper, it's you know, superheroes, like whatever the case is, I have like very niche interests, and I'm like, why not just find a way to write books that just keep circling around those things?
Yes.
You know, what I hear from everybody's answer, like the commonality that I hear from everyone's answer is passion. Mm-hmm. Like we find that thing, you know, that we are so passionate about. And I think that something that I learned as I started my writing journey, which was quite late in my life, actually, I had another life before that. But what I learned is that when I tapped into that passion, that it was the weirdest thing that somehow that just spilled right out onto the page. And then somehow in some magical process, that passion not only goes out of the page, but then it goes into the next person that reads it. And it's like the most mysterious, magical thing. And I realized this is why I'm such a reader. This is why I've been a reader all my life. I've been catching other people's passion all of my life. And it's this never-ending cycle that's been going on for as long as we've been telling stories. And I think it's a beautiful process to be a part of when we find that thing that excites us, you know, so much, and it spills onto the page and takes on a life of its own.
Yes.
That might have been the best way I've ever heard someone put why I'm a reader. I feel like I'm going to think about that comment for such a long time. I feel like there's so many times where I'm like, why did I become weirdly passionate about like chemistry? Like I just read this book. I'm like, what? I don't care about chemistry, but all of a sudden I'm like, did you know? I have so many things to tell you. I went down a rabbit hole after I looked this up. So I
it's
really
magic.
love that. It is magic.
Magic.
It's
Yeah.
real life magic.
Mm-hmm.
I will think about that for a while. Something else that I've been thinking about as I was looking at this whole lineup of books, so many of which, I mean, all of which I've been like huge fans of. And there's obviously you were all chosen for Reese's YA book club pick, which is incredible. But also you have something else in common, and that's definitely featuring. And I was trying to come up with the word to describe this, and I was like, there's just so many different words, and I don't want to put anyone into a box. So I'm going to sum it up by just saying, like, you all have amazing female leads. They're incredible. We love them. I think, speaking of magic, like, you become super attached to them in the world that they're a part of in any of the different capacities that your heroines take place. So, question for everyone, how did your lead heroine come about, and what responsibility do you feel in bringing her story into the world?
Oh, this is such a good question. This is really great. I love it. let me dive right in, because I'm thrilled. I want to answer this. Okay, so it's reverse engineering. Like, when I start working on a book, I start with plot first, or concept first, because I actually don't understand plot still, about 4 books in. And so if I know what the world is, I know how the story needs to end, like what I'm trying to arrive at, then I create the main character around what that idea is. And so all of my books are led by Black kids, because I'm Black. And, so far, most of them have been led by, queer Black girls. And so because those things are so important to me, that type of representation is so integral to how I see myself, but also what I want to put out in the world, in terms of, like, there are so many books that get published. If I have an opportunity to write some, I want to write the one that we don't get to see all the time. And so I think that, to me, is how I figure out who's going to lead us in a story. But with that said, when I started writing You Should See Me in a Crown, I wrote the book in I don't know, 8 millennia ago, like 2018. It feels like a decade ago now. But when I started working on You Should See Me in a Crown, that year, CCBC, which is like a think tank that does, like, studies about literature, released the numbers on diversity in kid lit. And over the 3 years prior to 2018, there were 20 books with a Black girl as a main character in YA, traditionally published. And of those 20 titles over the course of 3 years, there was only one Black queer girl, and that was in Little and Lion by Brandon Colbert, right? So I was writing into a space that was mostly unoccupied. And I know that publishing is risk averse, right? Like, the thing that they care about, like, more than white privilege, is money. And so I knew, like, if my book fails, then it's way less likely that a book like mine will come after it. And so I wanted to get it right. I wanted to throw everything at the wall to see what stuck, because I was like, man, if I never get to do this again, I want to make sure that I told a story that was as honest and as true to what I know as possible.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
That was a long answer. I know y'all got some good answers.
That was a perfect answer.
None of us know what to say.
We were just letting some space for us to process that answer, because it was so, I can only imagine what it's like to have to feel that amount of pressure. What I was sitting here thinking about is, like, what you were talking about, of the, if I only get to do this once,
yes,
like, I want to know. And that's just a lot of pressure to feel when you're trying to write something. And I'm so glad that you wrote it.
Yeah.
I think it's also a lot of pressure when your characters are real, in a different way. But Leah, you were putting so much of yourself, into those characters. And I think it's a different, I've always kind of done that with my main characters too, in really small ways, not in big ways, but ways that nobody would maybe even know, but when you're writing about people who are still alive, or when you're writing about traumatic experiences that have been a large part of a human experience, I felt that pressure a lot more than I thought that I was going to, because I felt like I was carrying quite a weight of responsibility, to tell those stories, like you said, as faithfully as I can. And in this case, like, for someone else, my main character for Bluebird came about because when I was researching the Light and Hidden Places, I wanted to present a balanced view of World War II. So I listened to hours and hours of oral histories of teenagers, German teenagers, who had grown up during the Third Reich. And the world of Hitler was the only world that they knew. And it was absolutely fascinating to listen to them talk about what it felt like to open your eyes one day and realize that you had been standing on the wrong side of history, that you had been involved in something monstrous, that the parent that loved you and dawdled you on their knee was the head of a concentration camp, was a murderer, was a monster. And it was a very profound moment for these girls who had suffered horrendously at the end of the war. Out of the 11 girls that I listened to interviewed, 9 of them had been raped by Soviet soldiers as the Soviets came through. Most of them had family members who had committed suicide or had seen people commit suicide as the war ended, because mass suicide was encouraged in Germany by the government at the end of the war. And so these were traumas that were handled. Some of them denied. Some of them tried to atone all of their lives. And a few of them really, really did everything they could to become agents for change. And I think it was the process of human transformation that so struck me, that our capacity for transformation to go from something that was so dark to something that was so much more light. And that was so profound to me that really is what inspired my main character.
I love that. That's so powerful. Yes, and in a way, just mixing up a little what Leah and Sharon both said, I grew up in another country, so our literary canon was very different from what my children are exposed to here in the United States. So I did grow up seeing myself on the pages of books, the books that I love. But then it was a different story when I came to the US, and I realized that if I wanted to pursue my passion of becoming an author, I had to do it in a language that wasn't my own. And then I did feel the pressure of having to show my identity to people who are not familiar with it. So a little bit like Sharon said, I created Camila. I'm more of a character-driven person in the sense that the character comes first and then I put them in the story. And Camila had always been a soccer player, and the story is set in Rosario, where I was born and raised, and in our family culture, city culture, country culture, we're obsessed with soccer. We export soccer players all over the world. Leo Messi was born in my neighborhood, and my cousins all have pictures with him walking around the streets of our barrio. But all the names that people know and celebrate are men. But I know women. I saw women playing when I was little, but I was never allowed. And not because my parents were horrible people, but because they wanted to protect me from heartbreak. They wanted to encourage things that would lead me to a life of success, however that is defined. And so when I started to pursue my dream of becoming an author, Furia was the first story that came to my mind, even though it was not my first published book. But it took a long, long time for the market to be right. We need diverse books had to come into the arena to open the doors for the story to be told. A book with the title in Spanish 10 years ago was impossible, and now it's just in the mainstream market. And so Camila just happened with me putting together pieces of the women that inspired me growing up. My mom, my neighbors, the girls that I went to school with. I was so homesick when I was writing this story. I hadn't been back in Argentina for a long time. And so writing the story was a way for me to create my own little virtual Rosario to go back to when my kids were taking their naps. And so at the beginning, I wrote it just for me. And like Leah said, I put everything in it because it was just totally indulgent. And then when I had the opportunity to share it with the rest of the world, I don't think it really hit me until I started receiving messages from Argentines from all over the world of how much it meant to see a brown-skinned Argentine girl on the cover. Usually the media we get from Argentina, everybody looks very European or Western European, although our people were a mixture of so many ethnicities and nations. And so seeing a girl like Camila on just right front and center was a first. And I really hope it will not be the last. And I am very hopeful that there will be many more Camilas to come.
Absolutely.
My story is similar to how I wrote Cuban Girl. I felt like I had one chance too, and that was to write my mother's story as an immigrant coming to America as a 17-year-old exchange student on her own, escaping just before Castro assumed power, going to Michigan, not Miami, but being, not speaking the language and learning. And then the rest of my humongous, big fat Cuban wedding type family following as they could in the next 15 to 20 years, escaping and being sponsored and all of this. And I felt like I wanted to open up that storybook and put it somewhere good, because I'm losing my family members. They're older. I'm the youngest cousin of the youngest daughter of 10 from a farm in the country in Cuba. And I felt like this responsibility that it's up to me to tell my mother's story, but I didn't want to appropriate it. I didn't want to write the story of a 17-year-old girl in the 50s. And I thought, I'm going to use her spirit and her bravery and her gumption and her courage and her love that grew and that spawned 1,000 different stories in 1,000 kitchens, over 1,000 meals. I'm going to take that and kind of bundle it up. And then I put her into an 18-year-old Miami Cuban who lives in my Diaz old neighborhood. And then I made her like me when I was 18, who thought she had everything figured out, that there was one plan, that I had to know this plan by high school graduation, obviously, and that if anything would get in the way with it, then it was the wrong thing. And that's basically Lila Reyes. That's how she believes, that there is one thing that she's destined for, and it's to live in one spot. And that's how she's the most Cuban, and she's the best fulfillment of her abuela and her legacy, that she has to be a certain thing. And that's kind of taught. And Shimile will kind of, I'm sure, realize that that's kind of ingrained into you often in families like mine, that you are born with legacy and you have to live up to it and carry it and be a certain way. And Lila learns to break that. And she doesn't want to at first, but then she learns that she can be a Cuban American and carry those things with her and be a girl and be a citizen of the world. And that is something I learned very quickly, that sometimes those changes are the best things that happen to you, and the unexpected things that bring you new careers, new loves, and new friends can be the best things. So that's Cuban Girl.
Emma, no pressure. It's not like everyone else hasn't had incredible answers to this question, but bring us home.
Wow, these answers have just been so moving and so powerful, and just really sit with me in a great way, just having read all of your books and just like feeling the emotion behind what created them. So thank you for that. I have a lot to think about. I feel like my answer is kind of a combo, because every author's answer is kind of a combo of other authors' answers. But I'm also somebody who's concept first and character that fits in later. And I think that has kind of allowed me to also, most of my characters, I always come back to the sister thing, but I have an older brother too, he's great. But I do find my sisters leak into every character I write. I can, you joke about authors, every character you write is kind of a version of yourself, but I feel like every character I've written is some version of me and my sisters combined. And I can even like pick which characters lean more toward one sister and one that leans more toward the other. And I thought that was really important. And you have a match, because
the whole book was kind of about sisterhood, sisters by blood and sisters by choice. And so it was a lot of fun to get to incorporate the things that I really loved about my own sisters in the characters. So that's sort of where that came from on my end.
Truly, these were all, I just want to say thank you before we move on for the answers that you all gave and the insight you gave to us as an audience into how these characters came about. I feel like sometimes we might forget, since they are in the public space for consuming, how personal it must feel to have your characters that you spent so much time with brought out into the world for us to all have reactions to in whatever way we react. And so I really appreciate the insights that you gave us into what was going on behind the scenes there. My next question, Sharon, is kind of returning to what you talked about, which is the responsibility that you felt writing out these characters, giving life to this story for some people that we might not know or have forgotten. But were there any characters throughout your writing of Bluebird that became really difficult for you to write? And if so, like who and what was kind of the difficulty that you experienced in putting them on the page?
Oh gosh, I don't know. That's a little bit of a hard question, because when you're in the middle of the writing process, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, guys. Does it not all feel hard? Like, I think everything's hard. When I'm in the middle of doing it, and you think, I'll never do this, and it's all wrong, and then suddenly, okay, maybe I can. I think that's everybody's. I think that's everybody's experience. I think I'll say that the difficulty, it was probably with trying to give a character a background that is really not okay, while keeping them a relatable character that you want to go on a journey with. And that was something that I really thought about long and hard. Could I even write that? Was I skillful enough, to write that? And in the end, all you can really do is follow that passion that I was talking about, and try and see what comes, out on the page. And so it was definitely something that I gave a lot of thought to. As far as the ladies of Powell House, all the Quaker ladies of Powell House that I wrote, all of them are based on real people. And all of them were Elizabeth Whittlesby, who is the sort of main lady running Powell, or helping to run Powell House in the book. I actually stayed with her daughter when I was researching that. I stayed there for 5 days, and she shared all of her mom's letters and diaries and all of her things. And she took me to meet Patricia Hunt, who is Patricia in the book in Sky Island. She was a 99-year-old Quaker lady. She was just getting ready to turn 101. The most eloquent, passionate, amazing 99-year-old you have ever talked to. Is so excited about social justice and peace and all of these things. It was absolutely incredible. And so I really wanted to do those women justice. All of those women, I was so amazed by their lives, not because of just, they were lives so well lived, that I really wanted to shine a spotlight on that piece of our history, because it's a bright piece of our history, and it's one that we don't often know exists. So again, I think the difficulty maybe was just more inside my head, saying, come on, Sharon, do right by some very good people of the past, and the one that was still around to read the book. So scary sending the book to a person who's actually in it by name. Very frightening.
I can only imagine. Yeah. And they know about the book.
Yeah,
and I'm sure that they are choosing to read it as well. Yeah, that would be an incredibly intense, difficult thing to try and write. We have an amazing question in the chat that I want to make sure that we get to. that I think every person here will definitely have an interesting answer to. But let's start with you, Sharon, and then kind of go to everyone else. Olivia wants to know, is there anything about your characters or your research that got left on the cutting room floor that you wish you could have fit in?
Absolutely. So, there's always things that, you know, when you do all this wonderful research, you want to stuff it all in your book, and you can't really do that and have an actually good narrative. So one of the things that was really inspiring to me is my research for Powell House was so in-depth because the American Friends Service Committee, who ran Powell House and won the Nobel Peace Prize actually in 1947 for all their global humanitarian work, has kept amazing archives. And part of that archive was 22,000 refugee files. 22,000 people passed through that program and were helped in myriad ways that we will probably never know, from big things like finding an apartment or tracing your relatives or getting a sponsorship so you can come to this country, to, do you need a new set of clothes? Can I help you read your ticket? Can I help show you how to use money? You know, all of these things, people, the ripple effect, I think, goes through time in a way that we'll never even fully understand. But there were case studies written on all of these people, personalities, life stories, letters. It was a treasure trove of story. And so all of the refugees that are minor characters that are represented in the book have their seeds in those files, which are all now located in the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum. There's an archivist there who has made it his mission to start trying to marry up these files back with their descendants, so that people will have this information. But if I could have put every one of those stories in Bluebird, I would have. They were heartrending and they were inspiring.
It's like I need a whole addendum. I need like a whole second book for you to be.
I was gonna say, you have to write more books. Sure.
I know, get to work, right?
Anyone else want to jump in with anything that was left on the cutting room floor?
Over the years that I was writing Furia, it went through so many titles. And also, I think I must have written close to, 500,000 words. And I remember for one of my revisions, I sent my editor, the manuscript had grown 25,000 words from the moment she acquired it until I had sent the revision. And she's like, no, we're not going to do this. And so I did have to cut so much. But two of my favorite scenes happened inside the Rosario Central Soccer Stadium. And I wish I could just show a little glimpse of what it's like to be inside a stadium when it's not even an important game. Actually, people were just allowed back into the stadiums last Sunday after a year and a half. And I saw our team lost. We always lose. But it didn't matter. Everybody was happy because we were back at the stadium. I was just watching on my computer. It was I remember that my memories of going to the stadium with my family are the brightest ones that I still have. And so I wanted to show that. But since girls are not allowed, women, I have never been to a women's game in the stadium. So Camila didn't belong there. And I didn't want to add that scene with her as a spectator. I just wanted to keep her the star of my book. And so we ended up cutting those two scenes, but I still have them in my special file that I will never go back and read. But a little bit of my heart is there.
I love doing that. Thank you for sharing that. I do have a fun question, unless anyone else wants to. I mean, they've all been fun. Sorry, I don't have. But I just enjoyed this in my mind, and I would love to hear from you all. So, let's say there was a whole mashup where, whatever the circumstances, however we made this possible, all of your characters ended up in the same school in current 2021. What do you think is happening? How are they responding to each other? Leah, are they putting on a great prom? I don't.
You know what? So let's put y'all on game. So listen to this, right? So my mom happens to work at my old high school, and she was talking about homecoming, like at my old high school, which is like loosely like, pieces of the prom and You Should See Me in a Crown are based on the school that I went to. And my mom was like, oh yeah, like the homecoming dance is coming up. The kids don't want to go. They're not excited. I said, what do you mean the kids don't want to go? They're not excited. She said, oh, the homecoming dance is going to be at 4:00 in the afternoon. They have to wear their school clothes to the dance, and it's going to be on the football field. I said, get it out of my face. This is the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. If this is the best we can do with COVID, cancel the dance. Okay. I don't even want to hear about it. So, if the question is how would they be responding via prom, they would have to throw their own prom, not school sanctioned. And I think that's a really good plot for what it's worth. But they definitely wouldn't be getting it approved by the administration.
No.
Nobody should put Eva on the prom committee. She may be good at a lot of things, but prom is not going to be one of them. Counter. Do not do that.
She does learn how to dance, though, a little bit reluctantly, right?
That's true. That is true. That is true. Well, maybe you're right. Maybe it just needs to, maybe she just needs a little loosening up. Maybe you know which part of the book you're in. I think you have a good point there.
She could be like a good organizer. Like there's like people who are like the I don't know, there's like the spirit behind some things. There's the like, how do you translate the spirit into actual task-oriented things? I mean,
committee.
Yeah. I think she's great.
I think she needs to get together with Laura's character and learn how to cook, or she's going to be in a restaurant the rest of her life.
Leela will teach her whether she wants to or not, because she just will. She'll be like, I'm just teaching you, just deal with it. Just eat this. Just eat this, and then eat that, and then this other thing. It's really good. Just trust me. And if you don't like it, you're wrong. That's pretty much what she's going to say. It's what she does.
What are your characters doing on there? They're like a good time at prom, right?
Oh, me?
Yeah, your characters. They're like a good time at prom.
I feel like Abby's at the prom and she's quietly taking everybody's picture and they don't know about it until they like see her Instagram story later. They're not even tagged. They're just like, oh. So that's what Abby's up to when we all go to prom together.
Oh my gosh. I love thinking about all these characters being, I feel like it's a great time. It's a good collection of people. They're going to put on a prom for everyone.
There will be pastries. I'm saying.
Yeah, we have great food.
Pictures.
We have great food. We have great music. We're not on a football field in our school clothes. I mean, none of them are letting. I mean, stop.
No.
They would not let that fly. I just refuse to believe it.
That what you said, Leah, to start us off on that, will be living rent free in my head for like a while.
Because I've been haunted by it. Let me tell you, I've been haunted by it since I heard it. I said, y'all are shaming the name of You Should See Me in a Crown. I don't like it.
We're all haunted too.
My goodness. I am okay. That was a good journey. Thank you for going on that with me. I had a lot of fun as I was prepping for that, thinking of that. I want to ask one final question about Bluebird before we go to some like this or that, and some rapid fire, just like giving us your reaction type things. Sharon, if there was one, I know that this, I'm already going to apologize for the question I'm going to ask you. Like, I just want you to know that in front.
What a preface. No, I don't feel nervous at all now.
I know, it's fine. If there was like one takeaway that you wanted a reader to have from Bluebird, what would you say it is?
Oh yeah, I actually can completely answer that. I think this is a question I don't often have the perfect exact answer with on books, but with Bluebird, I do, because there was one thing that I think I learned myself while I was writing it that really became part of the theme that underlined the whole book, and that just has to do with balance. I was writing a good portion of this during the pandemic, and we were in lockdown, and it was a very uncertain time. It was quite oppressive. There were so many bad things happening, all the racial unrest that was going on in 2020. It was disconcerting, and it was horrifying and very heavy. And, that kind of stress and that fear and that heaviness is like a cork in your creativity. It's like it just corks up your words. The words don't want to come out. And I was sitting there feeling so frustrated and like, maybe I can't do this. And I think I've made a terrible mistake ever writing a book. And, you're thinking all these dark thoughts. And I was looking at my own writing and thinking about my own story. And I realized, for every project Bluebird that is in the world, there is a Powell House. For every injustice, there is a Stefania Podgorska who is going to stand up and defy that, whether we ever know that person's name or not. It is there. And it just made me remember that there's a balance in the world. That even when, especially in this incredibly polarized world that we're living in right now, there is always another side. And I think that really gave me hope. Like it made me feel so hopeful for the world. We have the capacity to change. We have the capacity to change the world. And there are always people, even when we don't know their name, there are always people out there doing it. And that is my hope for the world. And I think that is the power of story, to show us those things, even when that story is your own story, it's taking its own life, taking that life of its own, and showing me the things that even I needed to know. But I think the catalyst for that change, unquestionably, always is unconditional love. When we are exposed to unconditional love, we change for the better. And that's a truth that I would like my readers to take away from Bluebird and believe.
You just gave me chills as you were talking about that. That's going to be like, now I'm like, how do I ask you the rest of these questions? What you just said is so important for everyone to hear. And I think it's the perfect way to sum up how I felt when I finished Bluebird. So thank you.
Good.
I just have a real quick round of it's October. It doesn't feel like October in St. Louis. I don't know about where everyone else is, but it is it's hot, and it shouldn't be. For St. Louis, Midwest should not be this hot at this point in time. So I just am going to try to bring in this fall vibe through some of these questions. So just shout out how you feel, or you can go round robin. I wish we were all in the same order on the screen. I don't think we are. We were trying to figure out high-fiving earlier in the green room.
There.
But really important question. Are you a fall or a winter person? What are you excited and need the fall weather? Or are you can we just get past fall because I need winter?
Fall.
This is my season.
Winter's a scam.
I know.
I'm a summer person. Where's the summer option?
I was offended that winter is even part of the question.
No one invited her.
No.
You don't even go here. Get her out of here.
Yeah. Okay. No one tried to defend winter, right? No one tried to. Wow, tough look for winter. Okay. This is a really important question. Witches or vampires?
Witches.
Vampires.
Werewolves? Can we flip that up? Great.
Depends on the time of day.
Yeah.
Both is good.
Fair question.
Listen, we didn't even talk about fairies. I mean, they're having a real moment right now too. Evil fairies are really that's, yeah, they're, but I think witches, I was how can I not say witches, but vampires, werewolves is a great, Leah, can you write me a werewolf book? Not that I'm asking a lot there.
Look, I'm working on it. Am I really? No, I'm not. Hey, let me stop it. I'm really not.
Don't get us excited.
I said, you know, let me not sit up here and lie because my editor could be in the chat right now. Leah,
Like, what?
are you talking about?
That's so funny. Okay. Pumpkin spice latte or mulled wine?
Oh, pumpkin spice.
I'm gonna go with the latte as well.
I put pumpkin spice in my tea. If you do it in your iced tea, that's my hack for everybody. Go to Starbucks and get a grande iced tea and ask them to put a pumpkin of the pumpkin sauce in it. It'll change your life and make you slightly less caffeinated.
I will report back.
Yeah, Laura, you let us know.
I will.
It turns a very satisfying orange color also, so you still get the aesthetic. We love to drink food dye.
Starbucks around the world are going to be like tweeting at you tomorrow. Like, what did you start?
What did you do? It's like, I would like the Emma Lorde, please. And they're like,
Sharon, did you try to defend mulled wine up there as you should?
Well, I was sitting there thinking, wow, I'm a huge coffee drinker. I drink coffee all the time. I'm not even sure if I've ever had mulled wine, but it really appeals. It appeals to my sense of drama a lot. So I was having a hard time rejecting it.
it goes with your aesthetic. We were talking about that.
It goes with my more aesthetic. I know.
I can't believe you said witchy and then tried to say you've never had mulled wine. Like those things feel like to me they go together. So Laura will report back on the pumpkin spice inside an iced tea. Sharon, I think your assignment. Oh yeah, with pink tea. That's a good specific question. Good follow up.
I need to know this. I mean,
it's the black tea.
The black tea. Okay.
As you suspected. And Sharon, your assignment is now you have to go try mulled wine. I'll see what I can do to help that.
We shall report back. I think I have a velvet cape I could wear while.
It's back in fashion.
Wow, that is a very dramatic. I mean, I see. That's like, I mean, it's perfect. Honestly, put that on TikTok and it's like crushing it.
More to come.
Final question: sweaters or leggings? Which can you like not live without in the fall?
There's a sweater on my book. A sweater. The cardigan is, there's one around here. Yes, always.
Yeah. Speaking of cardigans,
I mean, this is the one. Yeah.
Are you guys to this Taylor Swift question? Because I just want to sit here and say this really quick. I've been waiting for this whole time. You said the last question.
Don't worry. No. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. It's the last this or that. This is an open end. Don't you, Leah? I am not going to not ask this question. Don't.
Like I said, now I know we're not going to jump off this call without my opportunity to stand my white girl, Taylor Swift. Okay.
I mean, does anyone need to defend sweaters, or can we just go straight to Taylor? Speaking of cardigans,
go right on.
Okay.
Great
so
transition.
Here's a question that obviously some of us feel very passionately about. And I have an agreement. If each of your books was a Taylor Swift album and or song, depending on how specific y'all want to get, what would it be?
Leah, you go first.
You know, it's so funny you should ask this. I'm spur of the moment, just off the top of my head. So I actually, because who said they didn't have one? Sharon, you don't have one?
I think we had a couple.
Laura,
yeah, we're gonna need some assistance.
I have one. Oh, I got many, but I will narrow.
I was about to say, look, I'm ready to tag me in. Okay, so You Should See Me in a Crown, hands down, it's Betty from Folklore.
Yes, it is.
Beautiful song, amazing song. Love it for me. It's like Taylor Swift's like one canonically queer song in her catalog. I don't care what she says, it's canonically queer. Sharon, I did some thinking. I went into the lab. I did some thinking about this. I think there are a couple that we could do for you. One of them is Look What You Made Me Do. It's a song about vengeance. It's a song about justice in a certain way. I think that's a good way. I think also the song Only the Young. If y'all saw the Miss Americana documentary, it's about being a young person who has to, somehow figure out how to survive a system that is flawed and is harming them in many ways and harming the people they love. I think those two would be great for you.
So I feel like I have my assignment now. My assignment is to put on a cape, drink a glass of mulled wine while listening to these two Taylor Swift songs. Is that okay? I know what my evening is.
You can tell us which one. Yeah, which one you resonate with. And I just want to, Leah, I want you to know that Olivia's in the comments saying that you are crushing it. Like, you've already got fans agreeing with you. I do think that you have to tag in for Shamilia too, right? You need a song?
Yes, I
we
love
need
my
to
fellow
help.
Sagittarian Taylor, but I'm not, if we do Bad Bunny songs, I don't know any of her songs, so.
Look, I'm ready. You don't have to worry about it. I got you.
Okay.
Tag
I'm
me
ready
in.
too.
So I'm thinking the song The Man. Now, if y'all remember this, The Man is the Taylor Swift song where in her music video, she like dresses up as a guy, like all these different like terrible male figures throughout history. But it's a song about double standards. It's a song about being a woman who defies expectations. I think that's footy in a nutshell.
I'm going to look it up. Thank you, Leah.
Nailed it.
Leah is on this. Like, what kind of
I know.
business could you
And
run?
I just want to
Asking
be clear.
people to their perfect Taylor Swift song. I feel like you could monetize this.
I was just gonna be like, I
very
was
limited skill set. This is one of them. Okay.
You did not have like much time with this. Like, you came up with the. I mean, I know that like we talked about this like very briefly before going on the air, where I was like, does everyone have a song? And like you've been multitasking of answering questions and pairing these two with Taylor Swift songs. Like, I want that to be clear to everyone watching. Now Laura and Emma are Taylor Swift fans, and someone just turned the lights off on me. I'm gonna say that louder so they turn them back on. Thank you so much. Laura, what is your Taylor Swift song?
My editor will edit my book in Taylor Swift lines. We have done this, like, I mean, that is part of our edit letters, or so we both like, okay, did you hear that? What do you like? And it's usually the same thing. So this is part of our editorial process. Anyway, Cuban Girl is Cardigan. I mean, you put me on and said I was your favorite. I'm sorry. Like, it's the whole book. She's putting on his sweater. Like, it's on the book. It's on the cover. And when that song came out, like 2 weeks before my book released, guess who was right in my DMs going, "Oh my goodness, did you hear?" And I'm like, they made it for us. She made it for like Taylor, and like she knew.
Love it.
Yeah. So it's Cardigan.
You know what, Laura? I'm not gonna lie. I thought you were gonna go with like London Boy or something. Like, I know the book doesn't take place in London.
Boy. It's
but
not.
Like,
everyone says it.
But like, like the vibes are there. You know what I'm saying? Like, like European, like British, I think. Like, we're
I like London Boy.
Like,
my scooter. When she, I know London Boy. My scooter.
Oh my gosh, this is maybe my favorite.
It's not set in London. Everyone thinks Cuban Girl is set in London. They go to London, but it's not set in London.
Right.
So
that's why it's not
a Taylor Swift song. I do know a Taylor Swift song.
That one?
I knew you were trouble when you walked in. That one.
Wow, our John Mayer song, Sharon. That. I mean,
I just remember one.
That's a good
right.
one.
That's the one she wrote about John Mayer. I'm not making that up, right, Leah? That's the John Mayer song. We think.
Okay,
right?
Emma, what is it?
Yeah, I think so.
Styles.
All of them are about John Mayer or Joe Jonas.
Big Taylor Swift fan. I feel like You Have a Match was kind of a combination of just like vibes wise of Seven and Invisible String. Just
There
for the
she
sister.
goes.
That's they were like sort of like leading parallel lives. But I also feel like I have the every author who loves Taylor Swift has the uncanny knack of being able to relate literally any Taylor Swift song to the manuscript they're working on. So in that sense that we've claimed them all, like all of the songs are on all of our books all the time. Like if a new Taylor Swift song comes out, it's going on the playlist. Like, oops.
Oh my god.
But I will say though, like there was something about, look, Bluebird, great book. Everybody go buy it right now. But before we get back to that, I just want to say, also, if you're not streaming folklore while you're writing, what are you doing? Like, especially if you're writing a love story, I don't know what to tell you. Like, there's no like
this for us.
This was
two
ours.
manuscripts with folklore. I mean, thank you, Taylor. Just thank you from all of us. Thank you, Taylor Swift.
She gets a co-writing credit.
Right.
I feel like we need to tweet out at like Starbucks, Taylor. I mean, there's a lot of things that need to go. Powell House needs like a shout out and all that. Like, there's so many. Oh my gosh. And I feel like
want my endorsements. Where are the deals? Where are the deals?
This is truly, Leah, you have a real gift. That's what came out of this. And as do all of you, but Leah really brought us home with that question. And for the people watching, oh no, am I here? What happened?
We can hear you, but you
We can
are
hear you.
I
frozen.
can't see myself.
Your bangs look good though.
Oh,
there you go. There you are.
Great, I'm back. Wow, there's a lot of things happening. We do think we have a ghost here, and I feel like everyone left the store, and she is really messing with me. So I'm gonna end the whole thing. People who are watching, you can comment and let us know which Taylor Swift song that Leah gave us for Bluebird. Like, would love to know what you think as you read Bluebird. Which one resonated with you the most? You can vote and let us know, and we'll kind of circle back to that. But I want to say that Sharon was so kind as to send us signed book plates. So not only can you order your copy of Bluebird from us, we have a signed book plate for you. We have a cute, oh wow, I made a mess of things. I have a cute bookmark. I just got so excited about the book. I have your book plates. I have a bookmark. We have all kinds of themed things. We would love to sell it to you. If you're not in St. Louis, don't worry. We can ship to you. Sharon, thank you for such an incredible launch event. Thank you for giving us a reason to give all of these authors together. I mean, thank you so much to everyone who attended. Authors, all of you, you're amazing. Thank you for this conversation. This was so much fun.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, Sharon, do you have anything to say before we?
Thank you to Sharon.
All I have to say is thank you so much, you lovely, talented ladies, for being with me on my special day today, on my book birthday. It's a special little club, being a Reese book pick, and I don't think I really even understood that at the very beginning. It's just continue to be that, and I just appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for being so funny and interesting, and for writing such amazing books.
Thank you so much, Sharon, for all of that. Thank you to everyone. Thank you to everyone watching. We will see you next time. No, we'll find another reason to get all these people together. Don't you worry if you're feeling sad. So have a great rest of your evening.